Hey everybody, I'm Annie Hyman Pratt and I'm the founder of Leading Edge Teams, and I am super delighted today to have Ellyn Bader. She is a psychologist with has founded the Couples Institute in Menlo Park. And she is, first of all, one of my favorite people. She and I met in a marketing mastermind, a very high-end one. And I have learned a ton from Ellyn. And it turns out what we do is kind of similar because while we work with leaders and teams inside businesses, Ellyn works with couples, and she actually has a specialty in couples that work together. So all of this involves relationship, right? Whether it's closer relationships or personal ones or romantic ones, family ones, and relationships at work are certainly relationships too. So Ellyn, so happy to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Annie, and I'm happy too. I wanted to say a couple things as we get started. One is the first time I went in depth hearing what Annie had to teach, I went to a workshop that Annie did, and I sat there with my mouth open for a lot of it because there was so much similarity, and it was like, wow, meeting a kindred spirit. So
Yes.
that was really fun. And when Annie asked me to do this today, I thought, well, I'm probably very uniquely qualified for this because I've been working with my husband in our business since 1984. We now have two of our daughters working in the business. And 23 years ago, one of my best friends came to work doing editing and some other stuff for us. And at the time, we all agreed she was staying for 6 months. And it was 23 years later. She's even moved away from California and she's still working with us. So I think I have all the combinations of people in business that you put in what you wanted us to talk about today.
Yes, truly, truly. Yeah. So, so given that, why don't we dive in? And Ellyn, will you share with us, like, what are some of the most important things that make family and romantic relationships work in business? And by the way, I worked with my husband when I was the CEO of Coffee Bean, and my parents. So yeah, so we are definitely kindred spirits.
Right. Between us, we probably have just about every experience you could have.
Exactly.
Well, Annie, here's kind of a fun thing, which is before I tell you what I think, I asked Molly, one of our daughters, to tell me what she thinks makes it work.
Yeah.
And she's 30, and she had some really interesting little tidbits that she sent me. So I thought I would share her tidbits, and then we could talk more. But she said, there has to be trust. The parent has to trust that their child knows what they're doing and is willing to let the child do what the child's unique capacities and abilities are.
Yeah.
She said, schedule work time versus family time, so that if you're at work, there's time to talk about work. But if you're on leisure time and you don't, she was saying to me as the parent, if I don't want to talk about work on leisure time, we need to have that boundary. And that's also a big issue with couples as well. And she said, have patience at the beginning in working out your working relationship. She says, because it takes initial iterations and practice to figure out what styles and what's going to work well for everyone. And be clear, this was her message to kids, be clear to your parents about what you're good at and what you're not so good at, so that the expectations can be clear up front. Also tell them what you'd like to get better at and what you'd like to never, ever do.
Yeah, those are awesome. Those are really awesome. And I especially love the ones about, first of all, kind of clear communication of what your child really wants to do. I remember being in that position with my parents. And yeah, they had some ideas for things that I should do that I didn't really want to do. Like I didn't want to be a salesperson. And my dad was a great salesperson. And we were able to work that out. Oh my gosh, it's so important. And then what you said too about the leisure time being leisure time, we weren't so good at that. How do you guys do that?
Um, well, so here's an example, which is Molly came down to do some work on our next launch with me, and she came down on Saturday. And so we said at the beginning, all right, we're going to work really nonstop on the launch till 5 o'clock. When 5 o'clock gets here, we're having dinner with Pete, we're hanging out, we're not discussing work, and we're just putting it on the back burner at that time. And
Awesome.
we were good at that. We actually did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Something as simple as kind of setting that expectation, right? I don't know. I think when I was younger, I didn't have an awareness of any of that. Neither did my folks. And so we didn't say anything up front. And then we just kept talking. And then if we wanted to switch it to personal or if things got heated, it felt like, well, now I can't say anything, or it was strange. So yeah, I wish somebody had told me way back when. Just say it, right? Look, we're going to do this for this long and then we're going to switch.
And Annie, right now, I mean, first of all, for couples who work together, or even couples where it's kind of a startup and one person is like so in the business takes over the house and the home.
Yeah.
And couples have to be able to create some boundaries and some space. And it's become a lot harder since COVID.
Oh,
And
God.
so now
Yes.
people are working at home, and
Yeah.
both people are working at home. And if two
Yeah.
people have jobs and there's kids, it's become even more complicated. So the ability to really negotiate well and set boundaries is a really important key.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could so see that. And how do you and Pete and the couples you work with keep having fun? Because I felt like that was a challenge when I was working with my husband. It's like, we'd be working all day or all week, and then we'd get to the weekend, we're exhausted, and then maybe we'd talk about some more work, and then pretty soon our relationship was not in good shape. Like how do you do that?
So one of the things that I think we've done really well about that is to say, like, we do often have a business meeting on weekends,
Okay.
but we've said we only do it in nice restaurants.
Oh,
Now
nice.
we can't quite do it that way now,
Yeah.
but we can still pick up food and do it in the backyard. And
Nice.
so we created like the time. Yes, we know we have to talk some business on the weekend, but let's make it kind of a ritual, and instead of it just bleeding into the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Another thing I think has worked well for us is we have a common hobby that we share, which is playing tennis. And so we can go out and play tennis together. And in fact, since COVID, we've been playing at 7 in the morning a lot of days of the week to
Awesome.
have the time to still
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I think that's so, so important. And hard and just can be hard to do. Did you ever have a time with either your kids or with Pete about how would I say, like being upset with something that's happened in the business, or being kind of unhappy with something they did, or a way they behaved in the business, and how do you let that go?
Well, I'll answer you two different ways.
Okay, good.
So Pete and I had a big conflict this is many years ago now, but we used to run 5-day couples workshops together.
Yeah.
And after one particular workshop that was in Carmel, he said to me, I don't like what you say and how you say it.
Okay. Yeah.
Which
Oh
was
gosh. Yeah.
like that, oh. And I didn't like some things that he was doing either, of course.
Yeah.
And the whole time we were there, it was foggy. And these workshops were intense, and I like to be on the beach for the breaks. And so I was also saying, you know, if we're doing more of these, I want to do them at the beach where it's not going to be foggy, because we had been doing them in Hawaii and Mexico before that. And so it took us a year actually to work that one out.
Yeah.
Not not so much the beach one, although he wanted the mountains, I wanted the beach. And I think we were totally stupidly dumb until all of a sudden one day, about 9 months into it, we said, well, what about Lake Tahoe? But we hadn't been able to think of it.
Right.
And there
Right.
was, there was a solution that was sunny beach and mountains, and we were set on that. But the other part of really, I mean, we really had to, in a very difficult way, were we going to keep working together? Was the Institute going to survive? Were the workshops going to survive? And it took us a long time to figure out a major change actually in how we were doing the workshops. And once we made that major change, he was a lot happier, I was a lot happier, and we made it work. But couples who work together, I think when you hit those really serious disagreements, you have to be willing to hang into the tension
Yes.
and hang into that tension and
Yeah.
keep talking and keep finding out what matters, like what is really motivating the other person.
Yes.
Um,
And it seems like you have to stick with it long enough, like kind of be able to hang in the tension, but then set it down. Like, I think of it even as like, let's get distracted on something else, on something fun, so we can just get away from it for a little bit. And then when you come back to it, you have a little better perspective. And yeah, but oh my gosh, that sticking it out is it's hard sometimes,
It
right? Yeah.
oh yeah, it's very hard. Um, and it's I think of it, and I talk to couples a lot about building emotional muscle.
Yeah.
And that emotional muscle is knowing that you have the skill sets to resolve conflict, and
Yes.
that it's okay if it doesn't get resolved in the first or second discussion. And it's not your whole relationship. So one of the emotional muscle things is being able to delay gratification, being able to set something aside, being able to shift gears. And for some couples, they need, like, to make that shift means we go watch a funny movie together, because we can't quite make that shift ourselves if we've been in the tension, but
Yeah.
we use something external that helps us make that shift.
Totally. Totally. Or for us, it was going out to dinner with some dear friends,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. It's the world gets bigger again or something.
Yeah,
It's
and you remember you can laugh together.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I it's really the same in a business, that idea of being able to withstand the tension and not completely quit, or not become uncommitted, or so resentful that you don't want to try anymore, something like that. And it really is up to the person going through it, right? Like, it's, if I'm the one feeling the tension, I'm the one who has to go hold of my emotions. It's, no matter how many times I demanded it from my partner instead, right? And really, it's up to both of us, but for my well-being, it's up to me.
Well, and you know, um, we actually have a acronym that we use that fits with the word candor, as six main skills that make a difference. And the first skill is commitment, and it's the being clear about what your commitment is to your marriage, or
Yes.
to your parent-child relationship, or to the friendship, and what's the commitment to the business. And I do these intensives with couples who work together. And it's always, to me, fascinating, because one of the first things I do the first morning is talk about what is your commitment to your marriage and what is your commitment to your business. And just a recent example was that the wife said, I'm committed to my marriage for sure. And I'm committed to the business for the long haul because I definitely want our kids to be able to take it over and they're working and I want it to be able to pass it on. So I'm committed long haul. Husband said, I'm committed to the marriage. He said, but I'm doing everything I can to be able to sell the business within a year and a half to 2 years.
Ah, wow.
And so
Yeah.
just exposing that, you can see how many different areas of conflict would come up as they're each trying to do very different things.
Yes. No kidding. Um, oh my gosh. Does in the candor, does the A happen to stand for alignment? Or is it?
Actually, A stands for acknowledgement and appreciation.
Oh, nice. Nice. Um, Commitment, one of the things we talk about is alignment, right? Not only commitment, but alignment, meaning that we're both going for the same end or kind of, close enough. Yeah, because if one person is thinking, let's sell the business soon, and the other person is thinking, well, this could be around a really long time, including for my kids. Oh my gosh, do you have different futures in mind?
Totally,
Yeah,
totally. And
it's
no
yeah,
wonder that we're each other's throats at that point.
yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, fascinating. How did they work it out?
Um, they basically made an agreement, and they didn't live in California, so they went back to work with somebody else where they lived after they did this. But they basically made an agreement in those 2 days with me that they would not sell it for sure,
Okay,
for at least 2 to 3 years, and they would both make work on getting the business in the best shape possible in this 2 to 3 year period, and then they would
right.
revisit that decision.
Yeah, that's a really good solution because it has them both going for the same kind of short-term goal, and then you have all your options open, right? So
Right.
either way, like getting it in good shape for in 3 years from now is a good, you're either going to be able to sell it then, or you're going to be able to decide to keep it and have it be more of what you want.
Right.
So yeah, oh yeah, that
Right. I
sounds
mean, when they realized that difference that I told you on the commitment
yeah,
issue, I mean, they both were like, "Oh my god,"
yes.
that there's that moment of awareness that was big.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. And probably that's probably another thing about being able to stay in the tension because probably how many times have they been in tension before that was uncovered?
There's lots,
Yeah,
lots and lots.
no kidding. No kidding. Tell us what else is in candor.
Sure. So A is appreciation and acknowledgement, and one of the things that happens, I think often, is that when you have husband and wife or parent and child in a business, um, you forget, you take them for granted. They're in your life all the time, and
Yeah,
you don't make the effort to really say, to appreciate what they have done or what they're doing and to acknowledge them. And just like building any strong team takes that, it's
absolutely.
especially important in
Yeah.
those relationships.
Oh gosh, for sure. And I think probably in family relationships, really the same as work relationships, but in family maybe even more is there can be this thing of like, well, that's your job. Like, why should I appreciate you for doing something that's your job?
Right.
And the thing is that no, everybody needs to be appreciated, even if it is their job
That's right. That's right.
because we're not indentured service people. Like everybody has choice. And so, yeah, definitely appreciation. Huge. Awesome.
I love actually the Kipling quote, the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack.
Yeah.
Which, and that's so much for teams, because if you can't support the individual growth, the individual strength of the individual,
Yeah.
then the team is going to be weaker.
Absolutely.
And when the team is strong and has clear boundaries and clear expectations and commitments, it supports the growth of the individual. It makes the individual stronger, and so that
Yeah.
that synergy back and forth is so important.
Oh, it's so important. And conflict in the team is the worst because you can't, then you're also looking in. You aren't looking outside to the thing you want to accomplish. Yeah. Oh gosh, for sure. Yeah. Huge.
Anyway, I'll say the other couple
Yeah.
things. So N stands for negotiation. And of
Awesome.
course, negotiation fits at home and it fits in the business. And, we have a whole thing we teach about negotiation strategies that are specific for couples, which we probably don't have time for today. But one thing, I'll just say one thing, which is I think um, people get confused because values can't be negotiated, and people try to negotiate values instead of behaviors or changes or
Yes.
goals or things like that. And so even knowing what you are putting on the table for a negotiation matters a lot.
Oh, it super matters. Yeah. And one of the things we say about values is that we each perceive them differently, right? So one of the things we also say is like, nobody comes to an interview for being hired, looks at your values and says, oh, that integrity one, I don't have that one. you know,
Right, right.
Nobody says that. We all think of something like integrity as a different thing. So, even things like keeping an agreement. It's like, what kind of agreement? Was it an expectation? Was it something we negotiated recently? Does it mean that I can renegotiate? I mean, there's so many things. So it's like if you talk much more about either the behavior, or I think of it also as the situation. Like in this situation, what are we going to do?
Right.
So yeah, totally. Awesome.
I actually just saw a note from Monty too, which says that she posted in your Facebook group thing we have called the Candor Blueprint, and in it
Awesome.
are all the skills for negotiations, so people can go there and get it.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Awesome. And the D?
D stands for decision making,
Great.
and we teach people 3 different decision making strategies. One is equilateral, one is unilateral, and one is 51-49%.
Yeah,
And
I love
in,
that.
in different situations, one or the other of those is going to make a big difference.
Yes, I love that. And what I love about the 51-49 is it implies, it means you have to take what your partner wants really into account, right? It's like you have the ability, you have the authority to decide, but it's important to your partner too. Like you've got to take that into account. Kind of, I think of it as like think for both of you. What's going to work the
Yeah,
best?
and it takes a lot of trust
Yes.
to be able to. I mean, when you're running like a part of a business and somebody automatically has the 51%, it's a little different, not a lot, but a little different than in a marriage where you're making decisions at
Yes.
home and you decide who has the 51%. But in either case, the trust is going to create openness, vitality, the ability for people to work on something when they know that they are going to get taken into account.
Yes, for sure. Oh gosh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, does that matter? I can't. Yeah. I wish, another thing I wish I had known back when I first started working with my husband. Yeah.
How old were you when you started working with your parents?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. Well, I worked with my parents pretty much my whole life, starting as a teenager, right? I've been fired by my dad and rehired by my mom. I think because I was on the phone at work when I was a teenager instead of doing work. But I also worked a ton in the coffee stores, right? As what we would call today as a barista. So yeah, from very young, but when I was in my early 20s is when I came back to the business more as a manager, as an executive, and then became CEO.
Wow.
Yeah, it was tricky, and
You were a young CEO
I
too.
was a young CEO. Yes, and I have to say that my parents were really good about letting me have autonomy in some areas, right? And And we did have a kind of a 51-49 where my parents would make the final decision on, say, things like store locations, right? For a big investment like that, for people, expensive people that we wanted to hire, things that were a big investment, they really had the final say. But they were so open to me bringing what I thought forward, and that was really good. And
Yeah,
then there were times that my parents would say something and I would immediately feel like I was 10. You know, something like, Annie, you know, you're always thinking in a straight line. Like you gotta, you know, literally something that my dad might have said to me when I was 10.
right, right. So on one hand, they nurtured your leadership skills, and then on the other hand, they were like, they knew how to talk to you like you were a child too.
Yes. Yeah. And it was how to kind of put me in my place, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And yeah, that wasn't the most effective way. But we got through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got through it. And and the thing that I'll share too, because you're still working with your husband, which is awesome. But I'm not. My husband and I got divorced actually after the business was sold. We had much less in common to keep us together because we were strong partners in the business, less
Mhm.
strong partners without the business. And so it's just something again that I want to encourage all our listeners to really think about, to really know is that your business can't be your whole relationship, right? You really do have to keep nurturing that. You have to dedicate some real um, commitment and some real attention to it.
Well, and I think when you work together, you have to do that even more because
Exactly.
it's so seductive to just work.
It is. It is. And it's also one of the things I found too is I by working together, one of the things that I lost that I better know how to keep now is how you get to come home when you don't work with your spouse and you get to complain about everything that happened at the office, okay, or during your workday. When you're in a romantic couple, it doesn't work the same because you complain and your partner's thinking, well, you didn't do so hot in that situation. Like, I remember my husband would complain and I'm thinking like, well, of course it went that way. Right. And so like you don't have that kind of automatic ally. You have to figure out how to get that back.
Yeah.
It's like the point of a big point of romantic relationship is that kind of comforting of each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you do that kind of complaining in a regular romantic relationship, it's a bonding thing. And when you know
Right.
that they blew it and it doesn't work to bond you, then
Right. Absolutely. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
yeah, it's really the main way couples reconnect when they come home at the end of the day. And it is like a reconnecting, you're my
Yeah.
partner, you're my go-to person.
Yes, exactly. And when you're complaining about people that they don't know and they don't know the situation, I mean, it's like complaining about celebrities or something like, whatever, that's safe.
Right.
Nobody's ever gonna, you know, that's not gonna go anywhere. But oh my gosh, yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's
Uh,
a thing. Yeah. Well, let me see here. Ellen, this has been awesome. Any we're coming up right now on our time. Anything else you want to add? Did we do the R?
no, we didn't do the O and the R, and I'll do it
Let's do that.
really, really
Yeah,
fast. So
perfect.
O is for ownership. And that means you're really willing to own where you can grow and where you're not as
Awesome.
strong. So that accountability, that ownership is super important.
Yeah.
Um, and R stands for roles and responsibilities, particularly clear roles
Yeah.
and clear boundaries. So that, that like part of the house that is not for work
Yeah.
is, and when the roles are clear, people stay out of each other's lane and they let them do it. They're not, you know, over micromanaging or whatever. And it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And the roles and responsibilities, and especially kind of along with the decision making matrix too, because those often go together. That's super important. People need their lane. Oh my gosh, no, nobody is. The reason that micromanaging is such a problem is because it's impossible to work under somebody who's really micromanaging. It's
Yeah.
just you have to spend too much time trying to keep your own emotions down, trying to figure out, is what they're telling me to do really the thing I should be doing? It's a mess. Yeah. Those are awesome. Yeah. And ownership too. Well, one of the things I like about ownership and roles and responsibilities is ownership is owning the things that I can, that I might not be as strong in, that I am, uh, that I'm willing to let somebody else really have a strong, take more of a strong role in. And that goes right with the roles. I remember being in a workshop of yours, which was fabulous. And I remember you and Pete talking about um, couples differences and how you are looking for people to have different strengths, right? Like that really works. And not only the strengths, but if we're all the same and we all have the same strengths, we're missing a whole range, but also we all have the same weaknesses. And that's terrible,
I
right?
know. We always say to couples, how would you like to really live with a clone of yourself?
Yeah.
And almost everybody will say no, I have no interest in living with a clone of myself because we know our own weaknesses.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Ellyn, this has been awesome. Thank you so
Well,
much.
you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
It's fun to
Yeah.
do it with you.
Yeah. And yeah, let's do it again soon. And thank you for posting in the Facebook group for the for the candor acronym. Is that right?
Yeah, it's all got all the 6 aspects of candor and some bits about each one, and the negotiation sequences in there. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ellyn.
thank you.